Now, President-elect Trump has made his pick to head the Treasury Department. You're going to love this. Now, his name is Steven Mnuchin. I'm going to butcher his name, and I do not apologize for that. Now, look, he was already on Donald Trump's team. He ran as his finance chair during the presidential campaign. So really, it should be no surprise to anybody who's been paying attention that Donald Trump has tapped him for this cabinet position. Now, what should be a surprise, to Trump supporters at least, is how inside the proverbial swamp Mnuchin is. Oh boy. Now, see, he is a bit of an odd choice for Republicans. Of course, what hasn't been odd about this election for Republicans? You see, he's got a record of donating lots and lots of money to Democrats. In fact, to Hillary Clinton's campaign. He has given to Hillary Clinton's campaigns, her Senate campaign and first presidential campaign, I believe. Okay. Well, look, to be fair, he was a banker. So that kind of makes sense. The banks love the Democratic Party. He worked for a bank. Okay. Now, what bank did he work at? Well, for nearly 2 decades, Mnuchin worked at Goldman Sachs. Wait a minute. I thought Donald Trump and the Republican Party, I thought they hated Goldman Sachs, which essentially represents the global financial elite. I mean, you cannot get more global financial elite than Goldman fucking Sachs. Just saying. Now, when he left Goldman Sachs, after nearly 20 years, about 17 years, he also got a job working for, get this, George Soros. The right-wing boogeyman himself. Or I'm sorry, the left-wing boogeyman. Whatever. He scares right-wingers. Oh my God, everything terrible is being funded by George Soros. Yeah, Trump's Treasury Secretary pick also worked for George Soros. Technically, he was funded by George Soros. Interesting. Now, I would love to see Alex Jones rail about this pick. I would. I mean, if he's not fuming right now for Donald Trump, the guy he supported during the election, picking a guy who donated to number one Hillary Clinton and other Democrats, worked at Goldman Sachs, and then worked for George Soros, I don't know, man. Maybe he's not paying attention. His hair should be on fire right now. Because to them, George Soros is almost literally the fucking devil. Financing all these terrible liberal causes, so-called terrible liberal causes. Shit, he supposedly funds TYT and by extension me. Supposedly. And I'm still waiting for that check. I could really use it. Maybe build myself a decent studio for once. But it's still not there. I still haven't gotten paid. So I don't know. I'm doing all this shilling. So I should be getting something, right? But anyway. Look, Donald Trump, the point is, Donald Trump said that he was going to drain the swamp. Well, you don't drain the swamp by filling it with more water. And that's what this is. Anyone who voted for him, and they claim that, no, I voted for Trump to drain the swamp, and then is not pissed about this and some of his other appointments that are insiders and establishment figures, well, you weren't really interested in draining the swamp at all. No, it was the other stuff that you were interested in. It was the other stuff that you like the white supremacy. Now, look, more about Mnuchin's record. Now, after working for the devil, George Soros, he then founded his own private equity fund called Dune Capital Management. Now, among its most notable investments was the purchase of IndyMac from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation during the depths of the financial crisis back in 2009. Now, Dune led the consortium of investors who bought the failed subprime lender for about $1.6 billion. Mnuchin oversaw the rebuilding of its business as chairman of the newly renamed OneWest. Now, OneWest ended up having a pretty spotty record. Now, they foreclosed on a lot of people's homes after the 2008 financial crisis. According to the New York Post, a judge erased $525,000 in mortgage debt owed by a Long Island couple to OneWest Bank in 2009 because the institution was harassing them. I mean, look, it takes a lot of harassment to get that much money discharged. erased. Suffolk County Judge Jeffrey Spinner said that the banks had a harsh, repugnant, and repulsive acts as they attempted to toss the family out on the street around Thanksgiving. Oh boy. According to the, Spinner also wrote that the bank refused to work out a deal with the couple to help make mortgage payments they owed, and called the bank's conduct, quote, inequitable, unconscionable, vexatious, and opprobrious. That is a lot of big words, and they are not good. Around that same time, Mnuchin's bank was also hounding an 89-year-old widow attempting to foreclose on her home in California. Now, the woman is named Irene Jones, and she's reported to have said in court that the stress of repeated foreclosure threats from One West Bank and its predecessor, IndyMac Bank, made her husband so depressed it contributed possibly to his death. That same year, the bank changed the locks on a Minnesota woman, Leslie Park's home, and she discovered that she had been locked out when she returned home during a blizzard. And get this. The bank was like, my bad. Oops. That was kind of a mistake, wasn't it? Yeah, a little bit. Just a tiny one. So look, Mnuchin ran a bank that was essentially foreclosing on people, sometimes wrongly, that were just down in their luck. While his former employer, at around the same time, and of course the entire reason that he got rich, because he got rich working at Goldman Sachs, well, they got bailed out by the government. Fascinating. But see, Donald Trump doesn't really care about that. And a lot of Republicans that are actually okay with this also don't care about that. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why Donald Trump picked this guy. Number one, he is loyal. Trump values loyalty above all. And Steven Mnuchin, very, very loyal. He made a bet with Donald Trump, or I should say he made a bet on Donald Trump, supported him, and that bet paid off. He's now going to be Treasury Secretary. But here's the other thing. It's what he's going to do once he gets into that position. And he hasn't been shy about his plans. During an interview with CNN Money, Mnuchin laid out his plan for massive corporate tax cuts. Of course. For individuals, he said any reductions in upper income taxes would be offset by less deductions that pay for it. So basically, he says, we're going to cut corporate taxes. We're also going to cut taxes for the very, very rich. But don't worry, we're going to close loopholes. It's that old lie. They take out the loopholes for a short time, and then they put them back in. And now you're stuck with a massive tax cut. If you support this, then you're telling the bankers and you're telling Donald Trump and the Republicans that you're a sucker. Yes, please take my money, corporations. Please take it. Because look, when they don't pay their taxes, you do. And that's it. But don't worry. He also said that there's going to be a big middle income tax cut. Adding that taxes are way too complicated and that people spend way too much time worrying about ways to get them lower. Of course. Now first, tax cuts for the rich just middle class tax cuts don't work as well as tax cuts for the rich. They work far better. And second, if you do cut taxes across the board, then what are you going to end up with? Well, you're going to end up with more deficits. Massive deficits. That's why, look, here's the thing. Bill Clinton, when he was done with his office, right, he ended up having a huge surplus. George W. Bush gets in office, does a huge giant round of tax cuts, blows up the deficit, takes a surplus, turns it into a deficit. And we've been suffering from that ever since. Now, if you spent the last 8 years screaming about Obama, the debt and the deficit, it's so huge, we got to do something about the debt, we got to do something about the deficit, and you're okay with this? These massive tax cuts? You're a hypocrite. You don't understand what debt and deficit is. Now, Mnuchin also told CNBC that his priority is gutting financial reform or financial regulatory reform. He said the number one problem with Dodd-Frank is that it's way too complicated and cuts back lending. So we want to strip back parts of Dodd-Frank, and that will be the number one priority on the regulatory side. So already, here we go. Dodd-Frank, already super incredibly weak, gone. Specifically, the Volcker Rule. Now, what's the Volcker Rule? It was put in by Paul Volcker, and essentially, it stops banks from betting with deposited insured funds. So, right now, thanks to the Volcker Rule and Dodd-Frank, the banks can't go and gamble with depositor money that's insured. Get this guy in here, gets rid of the Volcker Rule, and we're back to the conditions that caused the financial crisis in 2008. How could anybody think that this is a good idea? But this guy does. And he's going to be in charge of the Treasury Department. Donald Trump is putting a fox in charge of the hen house. Somebody from Goldman Sachs, somebody from the banking industry, now going to be in charge of regulating the banking industry. Of course. Look, Donald Trump, he said he was going to drain the swamp, right? No. Like, he's putting in the global elite into positions of power after railing against them. You thought he was going to drain the swamp? No, I told you over and over again. Donald Trump is the swamp. Trump supporters, you got conned. You got had. You were useful idiots to Donald Trump. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.